Do you feel like you can't sit for very long before your back starts to tighten up and you need to do something like stretch or roll it out to make it feel better? Here's why that happens and what you can do to sit for longer periods of time without pain.
There's two main reasons why people can't sit for very long without their low back tightening up. And the first one is that they can't properly maintain the right contact points within their pelvis. What we're looking for is to maintain ideal and also relatively symmetrical contact between our left and right sit bone right here, or otherwise anatomically known as the ischial tuberosity. These key points right here put our pelvis in a nice position to sit and have that force evenly distributed throughout your whole hips. But in order to find these contact points in the first place, we need to be able to access a certain type of position within our pelvis, which is this shape right here, or these sit bones moving slightly away from each other. This is called internal rotation of the pelvis, like this. So if you notice, as this stretches out right here, this is going to create a little bit of length in tissues and muscles on the backside of my pelvis, like my glutes. So notice how it's easier for me to find the contact points here, but if I had a tight backside of the pelvis like this, it would be harder for me to find even contact. So first and foremost, we need to be able to open up the backside of our pelvis and be able to then access better internal rotation so that way we can find our sit bones more easily. So for this first one, all you need to do is just sit in your chair, and you want to feel your sit bones as realistically possible as you can on both sides. So just kind of roll your pelvis back and forth, find where you can get them evenly the most. Great, for me that's right here. Nice and tall. Now exhale, feel your rib cage come down, but don't slouch as you do it. Just feel a little bit of those low ribs come down. Now take your hands, link them together, place them behind your head. Again, eyes still straight ahead, rib cage still slightly down. And you can play around with how wide your feet are away from each other, but slightly outside of hip width is going to be ideal here. And now all you need to do is just slowly push your hips back a little bit as you lean forward. You're going to lose sit bone contact, and that's okay. But just go down into the point where you feel a little bit of stretch on the backside of your hips, your glutes, right here for me, and that's perfectly fine. We're going to hang out here and breathe in through our nose, out through our mouth. Really focusing on the relationship of keeping a neutral spine. Now the key here is you should not feel any tension in your low back. It should only feel like the backside of your hips are stretching. If you do feel tension in your back, you're likely to round it or to extend it. So that's why we want to keep the rib cage slightly down, or you're going down too far. So find that happy medium where you find that stretch slightly in the backside of the glutes. Maybe just a 4 out of 10, maybe even a 3 to start. And then you can progressively get lower and lower as you get better at this, but don't push it too far too soon. If you want more exercises that will help you do things like sit, stand, and walk for longer periods of time without discomfort or pain, check out my beginner body restoration program. I designed it for anyone to be able to do, and you can even individualize it to your own asymmetries. So check that out down below in the description. Now, the other problem people might have is an asymmetric ability to find their sit bones when they sit. So for example, if someone had a pelvis that was slightly higher on one side or the other, that might make it a little bit easier for them to find a sit bone on one side and not as much on the other side. Or if I had a pelvis that was slightly turned to one direction. So you can see these different types of hip imbalances would make it challenging for us to find those sit bones. Now this is slightly reductionist, but here's how you can tell. All you need to do is try to sit nice and tall and roll your pelvis forward and back. Move into what we would call more of an anterior or posterior pelvic tilt, trying to find that middle ground, keeping your feet firmly on the ground. And what you'll probably feel is that one sit bone is more easily found than the other. And so on the side that you're having a hard time finding that sit bone, you probably need to improve the ability of that side to access that internal rotation pelvis position on that side. So I'm going to show you an exercise you can do on that side to improve your ability to find that sit bone. Okay, now let's say I had a harder time finding my right sit bone than my left one. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that my knees are in line with my feet and also my hips, just like this. And I'll make sure that I have around a 90-degree bend at my knee right here. Somewhere around there is generally ideal. Now I'll again sit tall and I'll try to find both sit bones relatively evenly. Obviously I can't find my right one as well as my left, but I'm gonna try. And I'm gonna keep my posture nice and tall. Again, exhale.
ribs slightly down. Now, the foam roller's in between the mid-thigh, because what I'm gonna do is, keeping my feet nice and even on the ground, I'm going to very slightly shift my right knee behind my left, not turning my entire body with me, just a little subtle shift, and I'm gonna get heavier on my right side. That's gonna help me find my right sit bone more than my left as I lean on that right side. The only muscle I should feel engaging is my right inner thigh muscle. My right foot is, again, still on the ground, so is my left, just my knees are shifting. It's like I'm rolling my right knee behind my left like this. Now, I should feel no tension in my low back. It should just be my right inner thigh, and I should feel heavier on my right sit bone. If you do feel tension in your low back, it's very likely that you're arching or slouching as you do this. So just only do as much of a shift as realistically possible for you. And you'll hang out here, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Do that for about 5 to 10 breath cycles, focusing on that relationship between your foot being flat, inner thigh, and your sit bone. Now, remember at the beginning of the video, I said there's 2 main keys to fixing your low back when you sit for prolonged periods of time. Well, the second key is that you need to change how often and how frequently you are in a certain posture or position. So while you're sitting, yes, it's great to feel your sit bones, but get up and try standing. Try maybe laying on the ground, maybe cross-legged. Changing your posture and the positions you sit in is extremely important. What we're talking about here is just when you're in your regular desk sitting position. But if you're in any posture for too long, then that's probably not the best thing. But this is how you can improve the most frequent posture you're likely going to be in. The frequency at which you do these exercises will vary depending on you as an individual. If you feel like you need to do them more often, then do them more often. But I'd recommend at least once or twice a day for about 2 sets of 8 to 10 slow breath cycles.